Saving nickels, saving dimes, working till the sun don't shine. Looking forward to playing Bonanza on Switch 2. It's on the... Yeah, I know those codes from anywhere. Time to tackle the Funny Glider Show. And thank you, Background, from saving me from unironically singing It's On Like Donkey Kong. If you've seen my video on Ruby Spears' Mega Man's Curse of the Lion Men, you may remember me talking briefly about a show called Kiff, and that I considered reviewing episode 22B, Blooper Quest, for scrapping the idea in favor of reviewing the Mega Man episode. And that turned out to be a great decision on my part, because it resulted in my first video to cross quadruple-digit viewership. Like I often say, negativity sells. Even though that was more of a riffing on something that I love precisely for how bad it is, than a genuinely negative review.
Twirling, twirling, twirling towards freedom.
Back to Kiff though, I've always intended to cover the show, and reviewing a segment or episode has been on my back burner since the Lion Man video. And in the almost a year since said video, Disney has been pushing Kiff as one of their next big IPs in television animation. Down to having 2 specials that aren't part of the show's official episode count, and using the show, alongside fellow DTVA Golden Child Big City Greens, in an attempt to prop up Stugo. A show that, calling it now, it's gonna get a cult following of people who swear by its brand of goofiness and how autism-coded the characters are, and hopefully not curse the BCG and Kiff fandoms if Disney ends up screwing it over. More than it has already. Anyways, with Disney's recent adoration of Kiff, as well as my own desire to make a shorter video after spending longer with strange magic than any human being ever should, yes, I do recognize the irony in me saying this in leporine form, I figure it's about time I finally cover the show, in particular a segment I feel gives me a lot to talk about. Today we're going to look at episode 25A, Hungee Squirrel. Oh, wait, the show doesn't use scientific names like I do. Hungee Squirrel! I'm not sure how popular this segment is within the fandom, but apparently the people at DTVA like it enough that they've made it available for free on YouTube, along with its sibling segment, the Forever Angies. Either that or they're trying to sell how much like a low-quality JPEG meme both those titles sound. If it's the latter, then how fitting, because Hungee Squirrel just so happens to be about internet memes. And we're about to see just how well the show tackles meme culture. Hopefully better than something made by a fundy con artist of Gen X. But considering we're now in the era of cartoons made by people who actually grew up with the internet, we should be seeing an improvement in depictions of meme culture along with them, since these are the generations that actually know how the internet works.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
Oh, you gotta give him that hawk and spit on that thing, you get me?
When it doesn't boost drivel that belongs on Urban Dictionary and inspires its creator to launch a failed cryptocurrency. We do not engage with crypto unless it's Superman's dog. So let me start off with a short introduction to the show, since I know not everyone watching has seen my Lion Man video. Kiff is a slice of life show, focusing on the titular Sciron Kiff Chatterley and her leporine friend Barry Buns. Compared to many of DTVA's offerings of the past decade, it's pretty low concept. Whereas Big City Greens and Amphibia can be described as farmer family moves to the city and teenagers get transported to a Rainine world respectively, Kiff is more about its characters, who just so happen to live in a fantasy world inhabited by anthropomorphic animals and fantasy creatures. Of course, being set in a fantasy world means that the slice of life elements are often heightened beyond what is typical for the genre, and you'll never know what you're in for when you start a segment. Sometimes you get a story about Kiff trying to get a nickname or her and her friends putting on a play, and the story isn't much crazier than that. And sometimes you get a story about Kiff and Barry going antiquing that takes a turn for the regular show when the antiques come to life and start wreaking havoc in town. You'll never know just how crazy things will get in any given segment. Oh, and because it's a DTVA show that isn't heavy on serialization, the show is also a musical, like the Povenmire shows and the Ghost and Molly mix screwed over by the suits at Disney. That show is too good for this sinful world. Anyways, while I wouldn't say that the show's musical numbers are as consistently good as those on Tagam and Phineas and Ferb, when this show has a banger, it's an earworm. That mall song from Mall Eater will never leave your head once you hear it for your first time. One thing I do like about the show's musical numbers, though, is that they often appear as background music in a later segment, like played over a PA system or by a marching band.
Well, I've ridden on the fastest roller coaster, photobombed a theatrical poster, but it don't get better than this.
What are you doing huffing over here?
Amble guy, would it
give me a sample?
Same.
Oh, hi, guys.
Chunky, so chunky, sent a text so chunky, there's no turning back.
Let's go tables.
You could argue it's self-congratulatory on the part of the staff, but like I just said, this show at its best musically has some serious bangers you won't want to leave your head. So I don't mind hearing the various renditions it comes up with. Plus, better play something original than the same stock music and public domain tracks we've heard at least a triple-digit number of times. And yes, Hungee Squirrel has a musical number of its own, and we'll get to that when we get to that. And speaking of getting to that, let's use this show's approach to title design as a segue into talking about the segment proper. This show takes the title card approach, similar to Looney Tunes and SpongeBob, with a bit of a spin. The title cards are presented on a billboard, to which one of the show's characters, the dip-turned janitor Sweepy Steve, hangs an ad for the in-universe sponsor of the segment, whose product appears at some point during the story, either as a quick gag or a major plot point. Considering that most DTV shows go the traditional caption approach, it's nice to see the art of the title card isn't dead, especially considering that the other 3 DTV shows of this decade to use them are no longer running. The show doesn't cheap out on the title cards either. There's actual art direction on display here, and they're often quite detailed and appealing to look at. As for the sponsor bit, it's obviously included to make the business or product seem less like it was made up on the spot by giving it a slogan. It works better when the product or business is a major plot point, such as in 2-for-1 hot dogs, in which Kiff and Barry take the slogan, "It doesn't get better than this," literally. And in this segment, which starts with the Chatterley family arriving at the sponsor, Saddle's Food Ranch, which is basically this universe's version of Cracker Barrel. Minus the creepy racist vibes.
Well, if it isn't the Chatterley clan.
Why, you folks look more turned around than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest.
Man, how do you know what that is in a world of anthropomorphic animals? Anyways, the Chatterleys are led to their table, and Kiff works on the maze on the activity sheet as she waits for her usual
A big buckle burger as big as your head, which is saying something because your head is enormous.
Yeah, well, if you think your head is big, Kiff, you'd be lucky you're not a character in a 2000s video game. Because us millennials and 90s weenies love themselves a big head cheat code. Also, I know Kiff is a kid, but she's also a middle schooler. I don't completely buy that she would be so willing to do this maze at her age. Whatever that is, even the show is ambiguous about that.
Those jerks at the escape room told me I have to be 16.
16? But that's like 4 to 7 years from now.
At middle school age, kids are doing everything they can to seem what they consider grown up. Adopting pop stars as idols instead of Disney Channel stars, not admitting to watching kids' cartoons. A lot of kids start going emo and goth. You don't usually want to be seen out in public doing puzzles intended for kids no older than 8. In crayon. That draws in black despite the crayon being blue. But hey, that's just my experience. Some kids at that age are in fact Mabel Pines and Tilly Green types that are less ashamed to hold on to so-called childish things at middle school age, particularly if they're autistic, like Mabel and Tilly are both commonly headcanon to be. So I guess Kiff doing this maze isn't totally unbelievable. It goes against what I and many of my peers were like in middle school, but I can accept it, I guess. I kind of have to anyway, since this is actually going to be a plot point, believe it or not. Anyways, Kiff finishes the maze just as the burger arrives, and... oh wow, just noticing this now as I write the script to this video. We can see the flash of a camera on Kiff just as she eats her burger. And as we see in the next scene, the photo itself was taken for the birthday party happening in the background. That flash is such a small detail, but it's nice to see the animators thought to include it. Because you know if there wasn't one, there would be a bunch of nerds fighting about whether it's a plot hole because there was no indication a photo was taken, or not because cameras don't always flash. But there's a flash right there, a blink and you'll miss a detail that doesn't call a potential plot hole into question. See, this is why the tiny details are important. Because even those tiny details can throw things off in a big way if they appear, or not, where they shouldn't or should. You don't want to leave a cardboard cutout of Ted Danson on the set, and leave people wondering if a kid died in the apartment where it was filmed, even after it's made known that the interiors were shot on a soundstage. Also, as the guy who writes another work of furry fiction, let me also bring up that squirrels are omnivores, so it's not entirely out of the question that a scurine such as Kiff would eat a burger. The next day, Kiff learns from Barry that she has become a meme, the titular Hungee Squirrel.
I've been memed? Why didn't anyone tell me I look like that when I eat? How could you humiliate me like this, Internet? I gave you the best years of my life.
Dang, Internet. They don't care whose life they ruin.
Also, reading the text of the article here. That singular tooth. This isn't the first time the show has specified that Kiff has a tooth and not teeth. They also specified tooth in the singular in episode 22A.
You can't handle the
Tooth.
I guess the show's insistent on what it shows in the simplicity of its art style, at least when it comes to her incisors. This did leave me curious as to how many teeth squirrels usually have though. My research tells me they usually have 20, unless they're an eastern gray. However, squirrels as babies have big heads that take time to grow into, and because of this, they often fall and break their teeth. So I guess it's not out of the question for Kiff to have one tooth, or one incisor, if she was a clumsy baby. So Kiff finds a convenient pop-up ad, her words not mine.
Are you the lawyer from the convenient pop-up ad?
For a lawyer named Lance, who luckily for her and Barry, is willing to help Kiff sue for defamation as soon as she signs a contract. Whoa, wait a minute there, Dom. Wait just a minute. Yes, this is not a correct depiction of legal procedure. As a minor, Kiff in fact has no legal authority to sign a contract. That's why schools give out permission slips to parents and guardians for their kids to go on field trips. But as we can tell from Lance's forged diplomas in the background here, it's obvious he's what's the word again?
Excuse me, Mr. Hutz. Are you a shyster?
Yeah, that. Plus, there's this thing called artistic license that writers sometimes have to take to make a story engaging. So while yes, it is inaccurate for Kiff to be allowed to engage with contracts, I think we can suspend our disbelief here given what the story is presenting to us. Besides, this isn't even as liberal as the segment is gonna get with its artistic liberties about law. Lance invalidates the contract anyway though, when Kiff tells him that the internet is the one defaming her.
The internet can't sign a contract, and it never forgets, and it always wins!
You're goddamn right the internet always wins.
Your ad said you'd fight for me.
It's called false advertising, Jelly Bean. It's basically lying, but on a professional level.
So professional, in fact, that he wrote up an entire contract mentioning her and Saddles by name before she arrived, apparently knowing that she'd say the internet is the guilty party, so you could rip it up and tell her that suing the internet is impossible. Which is beyond being a liar, that's being a dick. So the plan to sue a failure, Kiff and Barry go to see
You're a memeorologist?
Memeorologist, let's just say meme expert, who turns out to be Barry's influencer sister Terry, to see how long the Hungee Squirrel meme will last. Also, nice to see a version of the fortune teller trope that does not have Terry dressed as a Romani stereotype. Staff must have learned how problematic that was since having Kiff dress as one in hat. Not to mention even setting the racist origins aside, it's a tired cliche. Although I must ask, why is Terry burning candles and incense in a tent? She set up here a death trap of carbon monoxide ready to catch fire at any moment!
You're Hungee Squirrel? Kiff, OMG! I didn't recognize you without your mouth wide open.
Even though she's best friends with your brother?
Let's see here. Ooh, yes.
What?
Yep.
What is it?
This could definitely fit in your mouth.
Ha ha ha! Okay, teasing Kiff in a funny way, and using the crystal ball for a direct shot of the fortune teller trope. This joke's a winner. So Terry finds the meme to be a potential evergreen, and takes the opportunity to take a selfie with Kiff, on which the lights explode like kombucha. For those of you that don't know what that is, I don't know either. I just know that it's a drink that explodes and the 2000s borns love it. Anyways, Kiff is recognized outside the tent by the Tabletonians, yes that is the canonical demonym, who've decided they don't care about potentially ruining a child's life over an embarrassing photo that they never let her live down.
Please let me take a photo!
Outside my canoe!
Please don't eat my baby!
As established earlier, squirrels are omnivores, which means if they were big enough, they probably would eat a kangaroo. Especially considering kangaroos are herbivores, and herbivores usually end up food for the meat eaters.
Full back tat!
You know that's gonna wash off, right? Also, it's not a good idea to make a tattoo based on an internet phenomenon. Case in point. When another crowd threatens to subject Kiff to more humiliation, she runs into the library, where Kiff's extended friend group is hanging out. These are the plus ones the story often uses when the story calls for Kiff and Barry to be accompanied by an extra character or two. Or 3, or 4. They consist of the Vulpine Candle Fox, a snooty rich girl, Arenaceon Trevor Engstrom, a socially awkward poor kid, Perseonine Reggie no surname given at the time of me writing this script, a geeky tech quiz, and Sueline Renee Dubedot. Don't know if I said that right. She is definitely a character that exists. Most the show has given us so far in its run is that she likes the arts such as acting and beat poetry.
Oh, yes! The Warthog Girl! What's her name?
And that most other Tabletonians seem to not know who she is. It's an incomplete attempt, but I do appreciate the effort made to develop a friend group beyond just Kiff and Barry. Although side tangent, with Barry being over 90% as present in the show as Kiff, even appearing in the show's logo, I am kinda surprised the show isn't called Kiff and Barry. Kiff and Barry sounds catchier too. Two double consonant names that slide off the tongue. But I digress. Trevor sleeps in the background as Kiff finds Kendall, Reggie, and Renee watching a music video remix of the meme on the computer. And yeah, that's how you know you've got an evergreen meme. When there's a song associated with it that takes off, not to mention to the level of 500,000 views in 2 hours, there's no going back. Rickroll, Chocolate Rain, Numa Numa, Fabulous Secret Powers, Nyan Cat, the latter of which on a meta level this music video seems to be inspired by. Any meme that has a popular novelty song associated with it is pretty much guaranteed evergreen status, which means in real life, if there was ever a chance the meme would blow over, it'd be out the window right about now. Also, wow, one day apparently. It took just one day for a whole ass song to be written and recorded, and have a music video made for it, based on this meme. Whoever made this video must work cartoonishly fast.
New profile pic.
Using the internet to embarrass your friends, are you, Reggie? Well, I guess I'll use the internet to say something embarrassing about you. Raccoons, as Procyon, don't have buck teeth. That's a glider trait, so you're a literal freak of nature. And by the way, yes, that was embarrassing his friend Zzz in the plural. Because Trevor wakes up just as Reggie takes the picture, quickly becoming the next meme, Just Woke Up Kid. Man, this show's attention to background detail is on point in this segment. This type writing should be what all cartoon writers strive for. Anyways, the rise of Just Woke Up Kid leads Kiff and Barry to believe that the meme has died out. As they celebrate by getting splinters and friction burn, Saddles runs an ad on TV announcing a rebrand.
The Hungee Squirrel.
Join us tonight for our grand opening.
With portions big enough to fill Hungee Squirrel's mouth. Come on down and open wide.
Still located at the same place as Saddles, or just a different restaurant now?
I think most Stapletonians would still call it Saddles though. I mean, even after over a year and a half, only news outlets and MAGA trash refer to Twitter as X, unless they're referring to the exodus of users fleeing to Blue Sky. Kiff, of course, does not take kindly to this rebrand, and confronts Mom and Pa Saddles over it, only to find that the base she did was secretly a contract signing away her likeness.
I was tricked. This can't be legit.
It's legit. And very sneaky. Couldn't have done it better myself.
No, it is not legit, it is fraud, which is a felony, and in a court of law would invalidate the contract. But considering the Saddles have revealed themselves as cartoonishly corrupt capitalist criminals, I am very much willing to believe they'd pull this and, with a shyster like Lance, figure out how to get away with it. It wouldn't be the first or even 34th time the courts let felonious business people off scot-free. Kiff decides to stoop to the Saddles level and sets her plan into motion at the grand opening.
I'm gonna give you one chance to be good people and sign this contract giving me back the rights to my own face.
Our accents fail to convey our sinister intentions.
You mean the accent most commonly associated with the country that tariffs its allies and funds Israel's genocide against Palestinians? Yeah, your accents convey your intentions pretty well, actually. Also, I know that bats have wings instead of front paws, but it'll never not look weird translated to anthropomorphic chiropterans. I don't know, I guess I've just been conditioned to accept the Rouge the Bat approach, even though doing it this way technically means giving them 4 arms. So Mom and Pa Saddles sign their names in the pavement, which turns out to be a signature line for a contract written in the cement under the restaurant, with members of the crowd from earlier present to help Kiff pull her trick off.
This can't be legit!
It's legit!
Oh, well, this is more upsetting than a—
Enough!
Written by a minor, and the signers were tricked, not to mention all the NDAs that would have to be signed in order to pull something like this off. See why I'm not busting out the Dom DeLuise clip on this one? When a show's applying both artistic license and cartoon logic, it's playing by its own rules. As for how Kiff got the money to pull this off, it's not outright stated, but considering, as I said earlier, she's friends with Candle, it's pretty safe to assume the Foxes funded this. So the Hungee Squirrel rebrand is cancelled, Kiff gets her dignity back, at the cost of the Chatterleys getting free dinner for life, and the segment ends with Trevor negotiating with the Saddles over a potential Just Woke Up Kid rebrand of the restaurant.
What do you want when you've just woken up? Food. It's a breakfast joint now. Also, are we married to the name Saddles?
To be fair, Trevor's ideas for a rebrand would be better than keeping the place resembling Cracker Barrel. And that was Hungee Squirrel. I can definitely see it becoming a favorite in the Kiff fandom. On top of being a funny segment that manages to talk about internet culture without coming off like a cringe boomer, its attention to detail is on point, and it gets better on rewatch when you see those little details set up to play out in the story. As for how it talks about law, yeah, it's silly, but honestly in a story like this, in a show like this, I'd not have it any other way. I'm not as big a fan of Kiff as I am of Big City Greens. I do have nits to pick about it, including with this segment. But I will say if you want to get into the show to see what it's like, this is a good one to start with, as it's its sibling, the Foreverangies. Hungee Squirrel is a good example of the show's more down-to-earth realistic stories, and the Foreverangies does well showing the more fantastical side. And if this video does well, I'll look into giving the latter its own review. Who knew a seemingly random package of 2 segments to be put on YouTube was a showcase of Kiff at the top of its quality? I guess DTV understands the internet after all, if it puts Hungee Squirrel forward as a potential segment to go viral, just like its titular meme. Oh hey, just noticed, this segment even has the troll phrase present in the background, on the sign in front of Terry's 10. That's a cool little Easter egg. Cool to see this show acknowledge one of the best known memes to come out of internet.
Oh crap!
And now it is time for the Phoenix to fly off. Until next time, take care, stay safe, be good to each other, reject Trump's attempts to bring the world down, and have a good one. If you would like to support this channel on a monetary level, then drop a donation at ko-fi.com/adlerbog. Monthly donors will get access to exclusive perks, such as donation credits in my videos and early access to completed OTOG chapters. Vielen Dank!